Welcome to the Cottage. Good evening and welcome. I'm calling to order the May 18th, 2020 regular Planning Commission regular meeting. Our first order of business will be roll call.
All right, Commissioner Bigham.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
Commissioner Knable.
Here.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Here.
Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Britton.
Here.
And Chair Kambata.
Here. Next will be approval of agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda from Commissioner Bigham.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Bigham. Do we have a second?
Second. Commissioner Wright.
From Commissioner Wright. Ben, I'll look to you for roll call.
Commissioner Bigham.
Here.
No.
Commissioner Wright.
Aye.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier.
Aye.
Commissioner Knable.
Aye.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Aye.
Commissioner Britton.
Aye.
And Chair Kambata.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 4 on our agenda will be open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak on a topic that is not already on tonight's agenda. Anyone interested in speaking? We'll have some special instructions because we're remote today. Anyone wishing to speak on an item for the forum may state their name and address for the record. In doing so, they may post a question using the Q&A option. If you post a question, I will state the question to the Planning Commission and staff, and we will address the questions accordingly. You can use the raise my hand option if you wish to verbally ask a question. Please test your device's microphone prior to selecting the raise my hand option to ensure that you will be heard. I will then call on you by name and ask the question. Please understand that once the question is asked, you'll be muted. If you have follow-up questions, please reselect the raise my hand option. That's the long version of the instructions for open forum. And we'll give it a few minutes here for anyone to pop up if they have anything they want to put on record. Okay, seeing none, we will. Moving on to item 5, explanation of the hearing process. The Planning Commission is a volunteer advisory group to the City Council. One of the Commission's functions is to hold public hearings and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. The purpose of these public hearings is to provide an opportunity for each applicant and citizens to present information, ask questions, and express opinions. Since these proceedings are televised and recorded for the public record, anyone wishing to speak must provide their name and address before addressing the Commission. Staff reports are prepared and provided to the applicant and Planning Commission in advance of the meeting. The first step in the hearing will be for staff to present a summary of the report. The applicant will then have an opportunity to briefly explain the proposal and provide additional information or comment. Anyone wanting to speak in favor or against the proposal will then be heard. Upon completion of the testimony, the hearing will be closed to the public comments. The Planning Commission will then discuss and act on the matter. Again, because we are remote, anybody wishing to speak on behalf of a matter during tonight's hearings will have those two options, to post a question using the Q&A option or to use the raise my hand option. And again, you're going to want to make sure that your microphone is functioning before you do so. The city council will act on these matters at their next meeting, and I'm working off an old version of the chair's explanation. So I'll look to staff to just pop in and tell me what date those are going to be acted upon.
Sure, Mr. Chair. So the Northern Natural Gas application will be heard on June 17th at the City Council meeting, and the Hy-Vee fireworks tent ICUP will be heard on June 3rd.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, moving forward, we will move on to item 6.1, Northern Natural Gas, conditional use permit 2020026, zoning amendment 2020-027, and SP 2020-028, with Emily Schmitz presenting.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair. I'll get all of this set up here, hopefully painless. How's that?
Looking good.
Yeah, that's good.
Excellent, excellent. So again, as mentioned, the first item before you this evening is an application that we received from Northern Natural Gas. They are looking to amend their existing conditional use permit, review a site plan, as well as the zoning amendment for the expansion of their town border station with a PUD. So the location is just east of Keats Avenue. As you can see the roundabout here, and it's kind of sandwiched between Old 70th and then the realigned 70th Street South, and it is kind of right in the midst of the Global Farm there. So the original town border station was approved in 1991 with this original structure, as you can see on this site plan here. It was expanded in 2002 with some additional area to the site, as well as the second building that you see here. So there are two structures on the site. As you can see, there's multiple areas where there's some above ground gas equipment that is throughout the existing site. There is an unpaved access, as well as security chain link fencing around the entirety of the site, as well as some screening on the south side, as well as the east side. So again, the request is to amend the existing CUP and then review their proposed site plan. The first thing I want to make note of is that part of this expansion or site plan review is taking place within a permanent easement that the applicant has secured from the surrounding Goebel property owner. So I just outlined it again in red, but I just want to be clear that this is a permanent easement and the applicant is not proposing to secure that 0.4 acres in fee title. So it will remain just that easement. They will have the rights essentially as a property owner of that area. There will be a total of 3 proposed new structures, 2 of which will be within the existing Northern Natural site, 1 which is proposed within, again, that permanent easement. Another part of the expansion, they will be improving the access from the Class 5 access to a paved access from the Old 70th Street to the property line, so the entirety of that right of way. They'll also propose a new chain link fencing around the entirety of the site, their property that they own, as well as the permanent easement, and we have required that that be a black vinyl chain link fence to blend with future development. The second or third, I suppose you could call it, portion of the request is a planned unit development. So a PUD allows for flexibility in development from standard requirements that you do find within the zoning code. You've seen this with other developments in the community. Typically they look like single family developments, but it does allow to, in this particular situation, to keep the site a little bit more compact. So we have some flexibility with setbacks, the number of structures, as well as just overall flexibility in the development when it comes to building materials, architecture, as well as the landscaping that the city does want to see as a part of this expansion. Now, I want to be clear that the PUD will encompass not only the Northern Natural owned parcel, but it will also encompass the permanent easement that they have secured from the Gobles as well. So when you look at our zoning map, it will have that funky hashed marking over this entire site, indicating that there is a PUD over that area. So that will be recorded, or actually the resolutions for all three of these requests will be recorded over the Northern Natural site, as well as the description for that permanent easement. Again, as I indicated briefly, this does allow for some reduced setbacks. I just wanted to give a quick visual of the setbacks that they are in fact proposing. So the furthest building within that permanent easement is at about 120 feet, where the minimum from the front setback is 100 feet. So these other two smaller control buildings do have that reduced setback from that front property line. And then we do have a little bit of a reduced setback from the rear property line as well, with 24 feet as we look at the entire site as a whole. And I just wanted to quick mention future development in the area. So it is guided in the 2040, comprehensive plan as high density within the near surrounding land. But we've also got some mixed use, medium density. So ultimately, multiple different land uses as this area continues to develop. So therefore, we do want to make sure that we require some intense screening, which leads me to my next slide. So per the recommendation of city staff, Northern Natural has provided the landscape plan in front of you, which indicates coniferous or evergreen trees planted on, this would actually be the west side and the east side. Per the recommendation of the city forester, he indicated 15-foot spacing of those evergreen trees. And we have requested that they do plant those at 8 feet in height, to, of course, start with a good buffer, and then as they grow over time, of course, create an even better buffer. So at the time this landscape plan was put together, Northern Natural had indicated, so right here, these are underground pipes that run through the site. And Northern Natural, their engineering folks had indicated that they have a standard where trees cannot be planted closer than 35 to 45 feet from those underground pipes. So staff said, okay, let's require a berm, as you've seen in the staff report, a berm with some shrubs on there to create some additional screening without that double row of coniferous trees as we saw on the east and west side. But I wanted to make note that since that time, Northern Natural has verified that there would be some flexibility to wrap this double row of evergreen trees around the south side of the site. They're able to plant within 10 feet of these underground pipes. So we might even be able to get some trees planted in between the two pipes that run through the site as well. So I just wanted to make note that there is that option as you continue your discussions. And I'll certainly, I know Northern Natural is on the line. If they have more to add, they most certainly can. And finally, I wanted to make it clear that this particular structure is the exact structure that is on the site. And so we want to make sure that any buildings that are constructed as a part of this expansion do match this architecture, similar in color, similar in materials, roof pitch, design. We want to maintain those class 1 materials that were required as a part of their expansion in 2002, which the applicant has indicated they most certainly will be able to do with those proposed 3 structures. So with that, I will leave the recommendation before you. But again, as I mentioned, I know there are a couple of folks from Northern Natural Gas on the line available to answer any questions. And of course, staff will stand to answer any questions as well.
All right. Thank you. Do any of the Planning Commission members have any questions for staff?
Yes, this is Commissioner Britton. I'm curious about to the south mostly, but of course north and south of the property. Is there some sort of easement where these pipes run? I'm assuming, because I was concerned about the 24 feet, but if you go back a picture, you got the two high pressure pipes there. I'm assuming you're not going to build anything to the south. What do the easements look like in that direction? I mean, because you're also talking about screening. There can't be anything built within what range in the southerly? Is my question making sense? What's happening to the south of this here? What could happen when development takes place in the future with respect to easements?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Britton, I do understand your question. I would enlist maybe the applicant, if they're able to verify what type of restrictions as far as building goes, over top or near those underground pipelines. I imagine there is a specific setback as this area develops. Again, of course, with high density, there will be some parameters that need to be kept there. But again, if the applicant has additional information to clarify, that would be great.
Yes. This is Dan Gorman at Northern Natural Gas. We do have two pipelines that run north-south across that property. And those pipelines are purchased on an existing easement. I don't have the easement pulled up in front of me at the moment. However, our current setbacks on that sides of pipelines for construction is generally at least 45 feet off of the pipeline. And of course, that would be for structures that have foundations. Northern works with landowners regularly on putting things like driveway access over our existing pipelines or utility access and that sort of thing. So they're not a strict bar to development in the area, but they would prevent, for example, a house being built, 10 feet off the pipeline or that sort of thing. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any further questions for staff from the commission? Okay, would the applicant like to add anything to that statement?
I think that was a very good summary of the proposed project. As we said, the original landscaping plan, we left off the landscaping on the rear of the south side of the property there, so that because we didn't want to promise something that ultimately regulations wouldn't allow. As staff accurately mentioned, we do have the ability to plant trees around the back end of it, and with reasonable spacing, ultimately we'd have to plant trees 10 feet, at least 10 feet off of the either of those pipelines. But with the existing spread between them, we should be able to put trees within, between those two. In addition, we'd be able to plant them, of course, north and south. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the map, east and west of the two pipelines and connecting to the screening that we show on the east and west side as well.
And then would you be doing berming on the one section where you can't plant trees, or what other type of screening options do you have?
Well, we thought we'd ask the input of this council as to what they would like to see. There are, from Northern's perspective, there are problems that can arise with berming. Oftentimes, we do have to do ongoing construction work, and it's generally easier to replace trees than it is to dig out a berm to get access to the rear facilities. However, a berm is a possibility. We have done that on other projects where it's otherwise been required. However, if we could stick to landscaping such as trees, that would be preferable for Northern Natural Gas.
And then how deep are these lines typically running as far as rooting issues? What kind of considerations are there for, smaller shrubs or kind of low ground cover? Is that a possibility?
I would think that would be a possibility. As I understand the regulations, and I'm not, in the regulation department, I'm in the roadway department, but the requirements were for trees, and as right of way normally defines that, those are trees of 4 inches diameter or larger, the same as that we clear regularly on the right of way in other places. It's my understanding that shrubs smaller than that would be permissible. However, I guess more formal review, if that's something that the city would be interested in, we could certainly do a review and make sure that there are no, best engineering guidelines or federal regulation that would prohibit us from doing that, and bring that up at the conditional use permit hearing.
Perfect. Thank you. Additional questions from the commission to the applicant?
This is Commissioner Frazier. I have one.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Gorman, I understand Northern Natural Gas's position that they prefer trees over the berm, and I get that point of view. I guess my question is, when the city requires certain levels of, or a certain amount of trees be there for screening, what is Northern Natural Gas going to do to make sure that
Nope. I'm sorry, you sort of broke out there at the very end of your question.
sorry about that. My reading of the staff report was back in 2002, the city required 15 trees to be on the property. And today, or when the site survey was done for this project, there's only 9 remaining. And so I guess my question is, what is Northern Natural Gas going to do then to make sure as this develops that the amount of screening required by the city remains on the property?
Sure. So, Northern does try to maintain all of the conditions for the conditional use permit, including the ongoing screening. It's my understanding during the conversations I had with the landowner that some of the trees just did not flourish on the west side of that property. And it was my understanding, now I didn't do the conditional use permit back in 2001 or 2002. But as I understood it from his conversation, that was a requirement that he had insisted on. And however, he decided not to pursue us remediating those. Now, that being said, I understand this is a much larger facility and this is new construction. And Northern does, take active steps in maintaining screening at our facilities. So it's certainly our intent to plant and maintain that screening. The other thing too is with the city recommendation and also the agreement that we put in place with the landowner when we acquired this permanent easement, trees of substantial size are being put in off the bat. I think a larger tree like that would likely have a better chance of surviving to begin with than what I understood were relatively small trees that we put in 2001 and 2002. So I think the plan that we've submitted to you today does have some precaution to make sure that the trees do better in general, which hopefully would necessitate less ongoing maintenance. But if that wasn't the case, we would certainly replace replace the trees if they died, but otherwise maintain the trees in a healthy state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And then we'll do one more round. Any other questions from the commission members? I'll thank the applicant for his time. At this time, I will open public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, again, may use the Q&A option. If you post a question, I'll go ahead and state the question, and then staff and the commission will have an opportunity to address the question accordingly. Otherwise, you've got the raise my hand option if you wish to verbally ask the question, and again, make sure your microphone's working in advance if you choose to go that route. And we'll give a few minutes here to see if anyone pops up. Okay, go one more time.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, can I be heard?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Kimberly Goebel. I am at 10174 70th Street South. So I'm across the street and just down, I'm across the street from Tom Goebel.
Okay.
And I have some questions. It's not uncommon for me to be walking by there daily, and it's very often you can smell gas. I've called on several occasions for them to come out to, take a look or hear the hissing sound of gas. And I'm wondering if they add more to this, is it going to be more leaking or does it get better? It's a concern that for my safety when I do walk by.
Right. Kimberly, what I'm going to do, and so that staff and the applicant can address your questions in a more orderly fashion, is I'm going to have you go ahead and ask each one of the questions, and then we'll go ahead and have staff respond to everything at the end of your questioning. So go ahead and ask the next question. Then when you're done, we'll try and address everything at once.
That's pretty much all I had.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Is this something that the staff or the applicant would like to speak to?
Yes, this is Dan Gorman. As far as I'm aware, there are no active, obviously, leaks on Northern's property. It is possible with the outside above ground piping that you may be able to hear natural gas flowing through those pipelines, which I think is what the applicant, or I'm sorry, the commenter was speaking about. All the additional facilities that we've proposed are enclosed. There will be above ground pipeline in the larger of the buildings. However, part of the reason that we do enclose it is to mitigate sounds from the facility, as well as, of course, safety reasons to make sure people don't have direct access to the pipeline. The other two buildings are, as I understand them, electronic control buildings. No gas should be flowing through those buildings. They'll mostly house the electronics necessary to run remotely the valves from that piping.
And to the question of having an odor, is it uncommon for you to get complaints or questions about odors from these types of facilities? And if so, how do you typically address them?
No, actually, odors are relatively rare in my experience at town border stations. It is possible that when we're doing, maintenance or construction work, that we may need to vent off some of the gas. It's also my understanding, and maybe Greg Bierman would be better to answer this, but odorizing normally happens at the point where it's going on to the city grid. The maiden pipelines, the two that run north and south through there, I don't believe are odorized pipelines, since those are major hubs. So it would sort of surprise me that there were smells of odor. The only thing that might be a possibility is if either the city facility, which I believe is located just to the east of here, ours facility, might be adding odorant to their system. That might be what's being smelled by Ms. Goebel. But I don't really see why an odor would be coming from that facility.
For sure, an odor comes from that facility. And I've called a couple times, and the number's on the fence, and take pictures so they know exactly where the location is. But it gets a little frightening when, you can hear it hissing and you can smell the odor. So I just had main concerns on that.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate that, and I will absolutely follow up to it. It is possible that, well, like I said, I can look into it. I don't I don't really have a good explanation for why there'd be odors coming from that facility. But I'll certainly look into it, as that is not something that it's my understanding that this facility would produce.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, looking for any additional commentary. I think at this point, we'll give it one more second. All right, we will go ahead and close public hearing. At this time, I'll look for question or comment from the commission.
This is Derek Rasmussen here. I think regarding the screening, my preference would be that we see some trees planted on that south side. I feel this site sits a little bit below 70th Street, which gets a lot of traffic. I drive by it quite a bit, and I think trees would be a lot more effective than a berm as far as screening that south side.
And okay, I think the applicant had stated that, and maybe I can have staff confirm this, but when this moves on to council, is there a way to amend, or should we amend our recommendation to encompass the deciduous screening on that south side? Or is that something that can just kind of be picked up at the next stage of the process?
Mr. Chair, I'll speak to that. I would say, as a part of the recommendation this evening, it should be mentioned that there be an amendment to condition number 1, where it spells out the berming requirement on the south side. So it should just be made clear in that recommendation
Okay.
that should be adjusted to an additional double row of coniferous trees or something to that effect.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Rasmussen, does that address your concern?
Does, I'm good.
Additional questions or comment from the commission? I think we're all, are we all in agreement? Based on what the applicant said, it sounded like that was the preferred way forward, was the deciduous screening on the south side. Can the applicant speak to that?
Yes. Yes. Planting trees on the south side would be preferable, certainly, to a berm. We can note that we do screen in facilities with other methods as well, upon request, which would include architectural netting as well as fence slatting. And again, the only reason that this particular map didn't show the placement of trees is at the time we were under the impression that our engineering best practices guidelines would restrict full trees to 45 feet basically away from those.
Okay.
So we didn't want to profit, but we did look into it and we can plant them as close as 10 feet again from those pipelines.
All right. Thank you, sir. Additional comment from the commission? At this time, I would look for a motion.
I move to approve, subject to the conditions stipulated in the staff report. This is Commissioner Britton.
Okay, Commissioner Britton, would you include in that motion to amend condition number 1
Yes.
to include a double row of trees on the south side of the property?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion to approve based on the findings of fact and subject to the conditions stipulated in the staff report, including amending condition number 1 to include a double row of deciduous trees on the south side of the property line. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wright.
I have a motion from Commissioner Britton and I have a second from Commissioner Wright. I'll look to Ben for roll call. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Commissioner Britton,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Commissioner Bigham.
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier,
Aye.
Commissioner Knable,
Aye.
Commissioner Rasmussen,
Aye.
and Chair Lara.
Aye. All right, moving on to item 6.2. Again, with Emily Schmitz presenting, Hy-Vee fireworks tent, interim conditional use permit 2020-029.
Excuse me. Yes, Mr. Chair, last item of the evening should be quick here. This is an interim conditional use permit application submitted by T&T Fireworks. It is, again, for an ICUP for temporary sales of fireworks within the Hy-Vee parking lot. And again, Hy-Vee is located just off of East Point Douglas Road and south of 80th Street. So the details of the proposal, operations would be as indicated from June 19th through July 6th, open 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So the tent is a 20 by 40 tent. They're also requesting an 8 by 20 storage container to be located on site as well. T&T has indicated that 8 by 20 storage container means that they can store the merchandise during non-business hours. Otherwise, they do need to have an employee on site 24 hours to watch over that merchandise. The biggest question that we wanted to make sure and address was, if you haven't noticed, there is a temporary garden center currently within the Hy-Vee parking lot as well, pursuant to their interim conditional use permit. But T&T has been very clear that they will not set up their tent, as clearly it does impact that area where the garden center is, until that garden center has been removed. So there will be no overlap of those uses within the site. So as you can see, it will take up definitely minimal parking compared to the garden center. The drive lanes will remain open at all time, so we're not too concerned about the flow of traffic or the impact to parking. Signage will be limited to, is required to be on site and must be located on the tent that is constructed to keep that off-site signage to none per se. Again, it will be a 5-year ICUP. They will be required to secure a building permit annually to construct that tent. So they will technically have a little bit of review each year to make sure they're following the conditions of their approval. And I'll make note that the fire inspector has also verified the conditions that have been met, and he is comfortable that they create a safe environment for those temporary sales. So with that, I will leave the recommendation. I do believe also the applicant is available, but of course, site or staff is available to answer any questions as well.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll look for questions from the commission for staff. Okay. Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation?
No, Emily did a great job presenting everything. This is Jacob Plum, area manager for TNT Fireworks in Minnesota. That about sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions any folks might have, though.
Perfect. Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant? Okay. At this time, I will open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application may do so by stating your name and address for the record. You've got two options for chiming in. One is using the Q&A option. The other is using the raise my hand option. And if you choose to do that, please ensure that your device's microphone is working prior to raising your hand. We'll give a few minutes here to see if anyone pops in. Nothing on the Q&A. All right, at this time, I will ask one more time. Okay, we'll close public hearing. Questions or comment from the commission regarding the application? My input is it looks like pretty standard stuff. I like that there's review every year, and I like that it's not going to be impeding on the garden center operations, and that those activities are not going to be overlapping and causing any issue. And if no one else has anything to add to that, I would look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Frazier. I'd make a motion to approve the interim conditional use permit subject to the conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Frazier. Do we have a second?
Second from Commissioner Bigham.
Second from Commissioner Bigham. At this point, I'll look to Ben for roll call. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Commissioner Frazier.
Aye.
Commissioner Bigham.
Aye.
Ben, your microphone is sounding a little off there.
Can you hear me better now?
Yep.
Commissioner Knable.
Aye.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Aye.
Commissioner Wright.
Aye.
Commissioner Britton.
Aye.
And Chair Kambata.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next item on our agenda is going to be approval of Planning Commission minutes for April 27th, 2020. And I'll look for a motion. Unless
Motion to
there are
approve minutes, Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, I forgot to chime in there before that. If there were no changes or amendments to that. And we had a motion to approve from Commissioner Wright. We have a second?
I second.
I have second from Commissioner Rasmussen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ben with roll call.
All right, Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Commissioner Rasmussen,
Aye.
Commissioner Bigham,
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier,
Aye.
Commissioner Knable,
Aye.
Commissioner Britton,
Aye.
and Chair Kambata.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. On to item 8. 8.1 is a recap of City Council, May City Council meetings.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Since this meeting is a little earlier than normal, we've only had one meeting since we last met, that being on May 6th. And on the May 6th agenda, there were 3 items that the Planning Commission reviewed or were part of. First being the final plat and development agreement approval of Woodward Ponds. That's for the first phase of that development, which is for 48 new townhomes. Second item being approval of the variances for the accessory structure located at 7903 113th Street, which was reviewed by the Planning Commission at the April meeting. And the third item was the Summers Landing 4th edition final plat and DA, which calls for 122 new single-family lots. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Dennis for the council update.
All right. Well, thank you, Director Boyk, for that. And, you know, tonight is, as it always is, when we end up having to say goodbye to one of our members, it's always a very bittersweet moment. And tonight, I'm talking about our friend and colleague, Mr. Justin Jarrett Wright. This is a little bit tough for me because this is a fellow that I've gotten to know personally, and I have nothing but the highest regard for. Jarrett is an officer in the United States Army, and he is being called upon to be deployed to go serve our country. And this will be the 3rd time that he has stepped up to do this for everybody. So there's a tremendous debt of gratitude that we owe him as members of our community and members of our nation. And so this morning, I had an opportunity to get together with him, and we've got a photograph there that was taken outdoors. Took us about 10 seconds to stamp a quick picture, but I had an opportunity to present him with a framed plaque and also a challenge coin in appreciation for the service that he has provided to our city here over the past couple of years on the Planning Commission. I do have a few stats that I'll go through very quickly. During Commissioner Wright's tenure on the Planning Commission, the Commission reviewed 84 planning cases, including 12 preliminary plats. Some of the commercial projects approved by the Commission included expansions for Up North Plastics, Renewal by Anderson, Leafline Labs, and Extra Space Storage. We also had some new projects that included Air Gas, Las Margaritas, temporary water treatment facility for Well 7 and 8, the 80th and Hemingway Apartments, and Cap Industries. And all of those ended up totaling in the millions of dollars of new infrastructure and investment in our community. So what I would do is, again, I would thank Commissioner Wright for his service here to us, and we'll wish him a quick and safe journey as he goes on behalf of serving and protecting our country. This fellow, and I mean this with the utmost sincerity, is a man of honor and a man of integrity, a great family man, a man who cares about his community and country, and one who has an amazing call to service. So I'm very proud to call him a friend and to have been a colleague with him for this time period. And, you know, so long as I have an opportunity myself to continue in service, I'm looking forward to the opportunity when he gets home safe and sound, after he takes care of the things that he needs to do on behalf of himself and his family, that if there would ever be an opportunity where he would like to serve again in a capacity with the city, we'd be very grateful to have him come back. And with that, Chair Kambata, I would like to yield my time back to the commission with hopes that you could open up an opportunity for any statements that the rest of our commission members would like to make to Mr. Wright. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jared, I have to say, when I heard that you were leaving, I was really, really discouraged. It's been It's been really nice to have somebody with your background on the commission. And I think you've been intuitive, and I think that the cases that have been important to you, your background and your insight have been exceedingly helpful in making sure that we're guiding the city forward in a way that we can all look back and be proud of. And I'm glad you got to be a part of that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And honestly, if you don't do something for the city when you get back, I would be really surprised.
I plan to. I appreciate all you guys. I've learned so much through the whole process here. It's such an honor to like see the decisions. You know, these are real decisions that are affecting real people, right? And we need to remember that as we're up, you know, in any kind of capacity of the city. So with that, it's just really, it's a cool feeling to actually know that you've been a part of some of the things that you're physically seeing through the city. You know, this is our city, man. This is where we live. We need to take care of it and take care of the people here. So yeah, I look forward to come back, and I'm proud to serve. I look forward to come back safe and sound.
Yeah.
Come back and see you guys again. So again,
absolutely. Anybody else want to add anything before I tear up here?
This is Commissioner Britton. Jared, I just wanted to say thanks for everything. I've only been back a couple months, but we worked a couple years together on the commission before, and it's been an honor working with you. And thank you for your service. And I look forward to you getting back and being part of the community again. Well, you won't never be part of the community, but actively working. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jared. You're going to be missed.
Thank you, guys.
With that, if anyone else would like to add anything, otherwise we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Jared, this is Derek here. Thanks for your service, buddy, and look forward to seeing you when you get back.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, sir. 8.2 is response to Planning Commission inquiries. Did we have any inquiries?
We do not tonight, Mr. Chair.
All right. 8.3 Planning Commission requests. Anybody want to request anything of staff?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Britton. I noticed in the staff report this week that some of the drawings for the application were not geographically oriented, as you would say, like look at a map.
Okay.
So east, west, north, south was a little bit confusing. And I know that it's necessary to do that sometimes to get the pictures to cleanly fit into the staff report. I just ask that if you're going to rotate the overviews of these, that you include, the nautical or the compass directions on there. So it's a little easier. You jump right into a drawing and you start talking about north-south, but the picture you're looking at really isn't defined in a north-south direction. So it would just be appreciated if you could include that with those drawings that are rotated to make it a little easier to line them up with the paragraphs that they go with. Thanks.
Yeah,
Right,
Mr. Chair, Commission, that's easily doable. So we'll be sure to do that. And like you said, usually it's for orientation purposes and fitting stuff in. But I agree, a north arrow would go a long ways in orientated people. So we can do that.
All right. So we'll get a compass key on these drawings, and then last item on our agenda, and I'll look to Jared to motion. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Commissioner Wright.
All right. I have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Wright. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second from Commissioner Rasmussen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'll look to Ben for roll call.
All right, Commissioner Wright for the last time, for now anyways.
Aye.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Aye.
Commissioner Bigham.
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier.
Aye.
Commissioner Knable.
Aye.
Commissioner Britton.
Aye.
And Chair Kambata.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time tonight. Have a great
Thanks,
evening.
guys.